Today's video, the goal is to give you the best teams to join in College Football 25 Road to Glory as a quarterback. Now, we're going to have a few criteria with this, and the gameplay that you're seeing on screen is Madden 24 mod of NCAA Football 24. So outside of that, getting into the video, the main thing we're going to focus on are these 3 points here. Teams that have a good rushing offense. So let's say over 4 yards per rush. Look, this isn't a perfect statistic to measure, but the goal is this is a possible indicator that you have a really good offensive line. So if you are averaging over 4 yards per rush, you usually will probably have a really good offensive line to protect you. Number 2, a returning wide receiver who will possibly be rated high in College Football 25. Look, we don't know how it's going to be set up as far as the ratings and the X factors or what type of system they're going to have in place, but the thing is, the best thing we could do is go to ncaa.com, pff.com. If you didn't see my previous video on wide receivers, and just go off of who were the best performing statistical players in last season. And last but not least, teams who threw the ball over 350 times a season. Look, if we're going to be the QB, and we also don't know if we're going to have the option to control play calling. I remember in NCAA 14 and the earlier NCAAs, you had to earn that right getting to captain status. So with that, I imagine we probably won't be in control of calling the plays. And the last stat we're taking a look at is a team with the least sacks allowed last season. So outside of that, if you're excited for this video, make sure to like, subscribe, turn on those notifications, and let's go ahead and get into our first team. Now, the first team in no order that I believe we should go with is the Missouri Tigers. And Mizzou has an All-American wide receiver returning in Luther Burden III. He's one of the most explosive wide receivers returning, and having a playmaking threat like that on your team is a luxury. Look, I watched some of this dude's highlights and he gets out, and he's somebody who can catch the ball and get a lot of yards after the catch, creating some crazy plays, and also he just gets that first step over a corner and he's out of there. Something else to keep in mind is Mizzou had a top 50 rushing offense, but the focus is the statistic they had over 4.51 yards per rush. So look, you didn't need necessarily a stud in the backfield, but this does create great balance for you as a QB if you're trying to work RPOs, play actions, and also screens can actually be sold to the defense when your run game is working. Now, the only downside of playing for Mizzou is that you're going to be in a loaded SEC. Now, the stats we're going to take a look at are the yards per rush, passes attempted, sacks allowed, and passing offense rank. Now with that, Mizzou stats, they have 4.51 yards per rush, which is solid. That means they're reliable on first and second down if you need them to be. Passes attempted, over 378 passes, so they had great balance to their offense. They allowed 26 sacks. Now, I do believe personally that sacks could be a indicator of the quarterback holding the ball too long, and that's where you're going to come into play because you're going to be able to see those reads a lot quicker than who is already at that position. In the passing offense rank, they were ranked 37th, so you're going into a top 50 offense with a stud returning receiver. Luther Burden III was an All-American, so we're talking about a guy who's going to come in probably rated high 90s for your freshman season. I think you got to rely on that. Now, going into the next team we want to talk about here is the Oregon Ducks. And look, I know a lot of people are going to say, well, that's not really rebuilding, but the thing is, Oregon has Tej Johnson returning. He's the adopted brother of Bo Nix. So a senior wide receiver that had over 1,100 yards receiving last season, and he's reliable, sure-handed receiver who makes the right plays. This dude does not make a lot of mistakes. And Oregon, once again, they had the #1 passing offense last season who lost their quarterback to the draft, but they're replacing him with Dillon Gabriel. Now, this is where your opportunity could come up and you can go compete against Dillon Gabriel and set the standard for the future. But outside of that, getting into the Oregon stats, yards per rush, they have 5.91 yards per rush. Insane numbers here, but that means they're also very creative in their run game. Question is, will EA College Football 25 replicate that type of creativity in the offensive play calls and the defense being able to get sold on those calls? The passes attempted, 514 passes. So look, you're going to get more than enough opportunities to throw that rock around the field. The sacks allowed, 5 sacks all season. That's going all the way into the bowl game and everything like that. So they were number 1 in the country in that stat. You're not going to get touched back there. And if you do, it's probably on you. And once again, the passing offense is number 1 in the country. So look, if you go there and make mistakes, hey man, you may have to clean up your game more so than theirs. And now we have a dark horse here, and that's the UNLV Running Rebels. A returning wide receiver in Ricky White III. He's a burner running routes, and after the catch being shifty and creative with how he finds space. He's a top 5 wide receiver in the country in receiving yards. And once again, he was a transfer from the Big Ten. So look, I think he's in a comfortable spot to where he's going to be returning. He's young and he's going to continue to put up great numbers. An overall solid team with a good rushing and passing attack when it comes to play calling. Downside is though, you're going to be playing in the Mountain West. Now we do know that they're going to a 12-team playoff, but once again, even though you may win your conference and go undefeated, UNLV still may be left out in the cold. So you have to be prepared for that as a player, or you got to be ready to go undefeated maybe 2 seasons in a row just to get maybe a 10 through 12 seed, which will be absolutely painful. But as far as the UNLV stats, right? Yards per rush, 4.51, that ranks 43rd. Passes attempted, 404 passes attempted. Sacks allowed 20, and the passing offense was ranked 55th. Hopefully EA gives Ricky White III the respect that he deserves as a receiver. Now, number 4 on this list, the UCF Golden Knights, and this is a true rebuilding opportunity for you, but with a good base to build off of. You're going to be losing 2 productive receivers, but this means also the team is recruiting well to have 2 receivers last season that was in the top 100, I believe, in receiving yards. They have a lot of transfers coming in, so with that, I don't know what this roster will look like, but let's get to the meat of this though. They have a top 5 rushing offense in the country last year and a top 50 passing offense with not the best QB play. Nothing against those guys, but once again, if you go into that situation as a QB and you raise them from 50 to maybe 20, that may be 2 or 3 wins that you get in that situation with that team. And also OU and Texas are leaving the Big 12, so you're gonna have some crazy home field advantage too. Also, you get some dope uniforms with the Space U uniforms too. So UCF may be a sleeper team you may want to join. But outside of that, the yards per rush, 5.61 yards per rush. That was ranked 4th in the country last year. The passes attempted, 366. Once again, I think they had rotating quarterbacks. I remember going to the Oklahoma UCF game, and they didn't have the same QB in the whole game. So it's going to be one of those things that you're going to go in, compete, and give them some calmness at the quarterback position. They allowed 25 sacks and had the 41st passing offense. So it's not a bad team to go to, and they're recruiting well. They're investing in their program. I think they're planning to get a new stadium or something like that soon. So look, it's going to be a good look to go to UCF. I may even do some type of road to glory with them. The last team in this list of 5 is Oklahoma State. Now, Oklahoma State is a wild card pick due to the potential of Ollie Gordon having a Heisman-like season upcoming and being rated well, and a returning wide receiver in Rashad Owens, who was a top 50 wide receiver. Having somebody in the backfield that can catch, run, just like Ollie Gordon, I think it's going to be a good look. I believe he's probably going to be rated over 89 overall plus, with being the Doak Walker winner. So look, you're gonna have some calmness there. Also, top 25 passing offense. The QB that you put in place for Oklahoma State will be the force that will allow Oklahoma State to become consistent in the Big 12. They only allowed 13 sacks last season, so you'll be a part of a traditional high-powered offense in Mike Gundy's system. Now, if we get into the statistics here though, yards per rush, 4.84. They were ranked 67th, so you know they can still tote the ball up the field. The passes attempted, 570 passes attempted, so more than enough opportunities to make something shake down the field. They only allowed 13 sacks, which was ranked 8th, and the passing offense was 25th. And now with OU and Texas being out of the Big 12, this is literally an opportunity for Oklahoma State to come in and absolutely dominate if you're that guy to come in and really do something. Now we have some honorable mention teams here that I just wanted to make sure I throw in here, and that's North Texas. You'll have a lethal returning wide receiver in Jamori Macklin. Look, if EA gives him the proper respect, just go watch the highlights, turn on the tape. That man is a burner. And you'll have the number 12 passing offense in the country. along with a top 25 rushing offense. Now, the last team we want to talk about is Kansas State, and the reason I had to add them to the group is because now you have the transfer with Dylan Edwards, and along with a number 11 rushing offense that'll improve with adding Dylan Edwards. They have a balanced receiving core, so I didn't see any studs necessarily stand out. Not to say they don't have any, but they didn't have one guy that just stood above the rest. But that still means that you have a solid core that you can build with, and they were still ranked 53rd. And they only allowed 17 sacks last season on 426 passing attempts. So K-State is going to take care of you up there in the Little Apple. And with that, man, these are the teams that I believe that should be a good look for you to go into your quarterback road to glory. I know I've left out quite a few teams, and there were probably some teams that were obvious that you should go to, but the main thing I wanted to do is find a team that you wouldn't go to and have to compete with a guy who's literally the guy there. You're gonna go in as a freshman, maybe have the opportunity to compete with one or two other people, and the play calling is going to be good. The rushing attack is going to be good. The passing attempts are going to be there, because I imagine you're not going to be able to call the plays on your own, at least the first couple of seasons, and just building off of that. So with that, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, turn on those notifications, and let me know in the comment section, what team will you go to for your quarterback in EA College Football 25? Outside of that, I appreciate you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.
And I feel too blessed today. I just got paid like yesterday, and I think I fooled around. So baby girl, put your